CyberArray for Teams was built to help organizations stay ahead of today's evolving threat landscape and to meet today's most difficult security challenges. Fortune 500 companies like Amgen, Booz Allen Hamilton, Plexus, CVP, Fannie Mae, and Vizio, small businesses worldwide, and several branches of the U.S. military use CyberArray for Teams to close the skill gaps that put their organizations at risk and to equip their workforce with the skills to defeat their security adversaries. CyberArray for Teams. Problem solved. Visit cyberarray.it/solved to solve your training problems. You want to get the right things done for your security program. Sounds simple, but what are the right things for you? What does done mean? And how are you going to get there? Rapid7 realizes more than anyone how hard this can be. While Rapid7's Insight platform offers you industry-leading vulnerability management and detection and response solutions, their focus is on understanding where you are so that they can help you get where you're going. Visit securityweekly.com/Rapid7 to get started. Cybercriminals are opportunistically targeting industries that continue to operate full tilt during the coronavirus shutdowns, and their attacks have grown more sophisticated. Given this shifting landscape, taking the appropriate countermeasures becomes paramount. Mimecast Email Security 3.0 helps you evolve from a perimeter-based security strategy to one that is comprehensive and pervasive with cyber resiliency in mind. From the company that stops at nothing to block cyber threats, Mimecast is offering a fully featured 90-day web security service. Visit securityweekly.com/Mimecast to learn more. Well, welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. If you would like to have all of your favorite Security Weekly content at your fingertips, learn about upcoming webcast and technical training, or maybe you just want to hang out with the Security Weekly crew and community, go to securityweekly.com/subscribe, sign up for our mailing list, join our community Discord server, and subscribe to all of the shows on the Security Weekly network at securityweekly.com/subscribe. Speaking of upcoming webcasts and technical training, you can learn why you should stop trying to discover and classify data, how to thwart attackers using deception, and how to build a risk-based vulnerability management program by visiting securityweekly.com/webcast or /on-demand for our previously recorded webcasts. This segment is sponsored by ExtraHop. To learn more about ExtraHop solutions, visit securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. Joining us today from ExtraHop is Mike Campfield, the Cloud Incident Response Manager. Mike is the VP and General Manager of International and Global Security Programs. Wow, that's a long title. I like it, though. He leads...
Try to make it hard for you, Paul.
That's it. Mike leads the security go-to-market and at ExtraHop and has been in security risk and information management for over 2 decades. Mike, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Paul.
Mike, I want to start with, the importance of collecting data from the network. And as I've described many, many times on the show, people kind of know we can call it the trifecta, or I like to add threat intelligence as a separate enchanted quadrant in my graph, that you pull telemetry from the network, you pull telemetry from the endpoint, and you pull together your logs, and you also have a threat intelligence component. Today, we're talking about the advantages of pulling it from the network, especially as we look at how our applications and services are pretty much all moving to the cloud in some capacity. I think most organizations today have a cloud presence and or are moving it there. And how do we still collect that network intelligence?
Yeah, it's a great question. The network detection and response market, or NDR, as you'll probably hear me talk about throughout this segment, is one of the top growing segments in security today. And as you said, collecting network data or getting the ground truth is an important requirement for really any security program of any maturity. And the challenges of this multi-cloud or hybrid world has perplexed a lot of different solutions and a lot of different areas of security, whether it's network security, the log or SIM security, endpoint, or anywhere. And there were certain friction points with the cloud in particular. And we've been working and partnering with the hyperscalers at Google and AWS, et cetera, to open up their packets to vendors like us in order to ensure that the network isn't forgotten, because that is, in our opinion, the first place you should start.
And it's interesting, years ago when I was defending networks, both my clients and endpoints and my services were all on the same network, and I could span and tap and have a great time collecting all of that stuff, of course, that technology design and architecture is very limiting. And I think we as security people, we throw caution and we're like, we got to move to the cloud. Oh my God, what am I going to do to get all that network telemetry and manage my clients? And I just think it's different, right? That you are looking at network traffic in a different spot and able to correlate that to other areas such as endpoint and logs, just in a different way. And I think that once you're consolidating your applications up into the cloud, your infrastructure in the cloud, that's a great point to do that. And are we still able to get telemetry about the endpoint in that architecture?
For sure, and not only get the telemetry from the endpoint or other systems that you may have, whether they be the log-based systems and using AWS terms, getting CloudTrail logs or whatever, but also working in concert. The cloud is an API first based world. And whether you're talking on the containment side or orchestration side, being able to not only put and get data, but also do something with that becomes vitally important. And at ExtraHop and in the cloud, we believe that it should all work together in all of those contexts.
We talked about the containment at ExtraHop. If I've got services or applications running in the cloud, there's a containment aspect to that when I can detect attacks, I can take action, correct?
Absolutely. And whether that's with some of our best partners, we do a lot of business with CrowdStrike. If you happen to have an EER type tool from a third party out in the cloud, or even using native cloud services, the AWS, GCP, Azure, built-in containment mechanisms directly into those clouds. So it gives you multiple options in order to take care of that. And at ExtraHop, we really tried to architect for both what the customer has from a third-party perspective, but also leverage the infrastructure that they might be participating in from the cloud service providers or their on-premise infrastructure.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike, how are some of the customers addressing the challenge of all the different data sources and bringing them together? I mean, you talked a little bit about your partnerships with the EDR vendors. I assume there's also got to be partnership with the SIMs and the SOARs, because at some point to get all of Paul's enchanted quadrants together, that data has to get integrated together. How does that work with ExtraHop, the ExtraHop partners? How are you seeing people solve the integration challenges of all this data?
Well, it's a tremendous challenge. The data lake for security has been this unicorn that everybody's been chasing for a long time, and a lot of even the most well-funded security programs and well-funded companies, really still struggle with, where do you put it? How do you get insights out of it? What's the best way to deal with it? So, with that being said, we see a lot of our customers look at NDR as being the first part of the ground of truth. With network detection and response, it's always on, it's immediate, and it gives you that instant insight and capability. If a customer would like to use a Palo Alto Cortex or some kind of Splunk SOAR or even SIM system, we typically work in concert with that. But it's a you asked me a very complex question, and I would say, in my IR playbook, and this is something I learned at my old companies, you put the network down and you see who's talking on the wire, and you get that instant ground truth. Once you have that, then you then contain that, and whether you contain that with an EDR agent or contain that some other way, you're going from there, and then you post haste look at your logging and your other monitoring infrastructure. But I would contend, and a lot of times we see with our customers, they're looking at the network to get that initial look into that data. And depending on how they build their data lake, whether it's in the NDR system, which we can do, or in a cloud infrastructure, which we certainly can put information into Sentinel or any other kind of cloud SIM, and then orchestrate it. It's really up to the maturity of the security program, number one, and then number two, it's around what tools do they want to leverage, and it's honestly not a one size fits all that I've seen out there. It's emerging, I guess, is the quick answer to that.
Yeah, and you've kind of flipped the model, because traditionally we would start with the endpoint or the logs, right, and try to enrich there, because we couldn't get our hands easily on the network data. I think that shift we've had that shift already. I mean, it's much easier to go get flow, get packet data than it ever has before. And what you just kind of outlined was start with the network, then we can start to layer on some of the other things. And that's a little different than what we've traditionally done in the space.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's great.
I'm totally right about that. When I take a quote from one of our co-founders, you look at some of these other data sources as being rivers or creeks, and you look at the network as being Niagara Falls. There was a long lineage of doing full packet capture and other ways of getting network data that just didn't scale. It just never worked out. And I've worked at lots of companies where we tried very hard to capture all of that, and it just wasn't available. And the new providers like ExtraHop and network detection response, along with the friction being taken out of packet acquisition, it's really culminated in what you just said, which is the network can be that first place where before it was really prohibitive, because you really can't catch all the water going over the falls.
That's what makes me really excited about these technologies, such as ExtraHop, for example, because I think if you look at my enchanted quadrants, in any one of those quadrants, you can be overwhelmed with data. You can be overwhelmed with logs. You can be overwhelmed with endpoint data, the number of endpoint agents you might have to install. You can be overwhelmed with network data and overwhelmed with threat intelligence. And what I think is encouraging is that there are solutions and vendors such as yourselves that are allowing us to make sense of that and overcome that challenge of, oh my God, I do full packet capture and I can't store it. I don't know what to do with it. ExtraHop has solved that problem for you so that you can take that in as a data source and have actionable results that come from it.
100%. If I had $1 for every time that a security leader, CISO, whomever, told me, Mike, if you give me a solution, my analysts wouldn't know what to do with it. Yeah. I wouldn't have to be on this talk today. I could be out on my boat in Rhode Island. So when you look at the challenges, number one challenge in security is people. When you double click on that, it's the capability of those people, whether they're inundated with alerts, like you said, or whether it's the complexity of triaging things. And there's been this gigantic word of correlation for a long time. And the beautiful thing about network detection and response is it's auto-magically correlated for you. When you can't hide that a host is talking to another host. And if you add in kind of the problem of the day, which is this remote work and unmanaged devices, and even on the last program that you had where people were talking about you just can't ever get a full view of everything that's going to go into your enterprise or your networks, you have to work with with a network detection response tool.
Yeah, it's interesting because we paint this year as, well, everyone's working from home, but that was always a thing. In the past 20 plus years, it was always a thing. We always had that gap, so to speak, in our visibility if people worked from home. I think we like to think that everyone came to the office and worked, and that was the only time that they were accessing data. And that's just not true at all, which is why I like going to the cloud to do my network detection and response, because we know we're not, users are going to float around, they're going to work from home, they're going to go visit sites, they're going to get compromised. But when they access my data or, on someone else's servers, it's still my data and my applications, depending on where you're on the stack. I want to be able to look inside of that traffic and get data and make that into information. And that's what I feel like your solution does really well.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. When you think about being able to bring in all of the endpoints and counting those, it's kind of a fallacy. So if you believe that you know every device that's going to connect to one of your services, then don't get network detection and response. If you feel like you know every service that may even connect to it and you have it nailed, congratulations, you're the first company ever that's really nailed that at 100%. And just having this passive visibility, regardless of who is coming into your infrastructure, is vitally important with unmanaged devices, with items that cannot get telemetry, or just a multi-cloud world, like you said, Paul.
It's interesting, Mike, because I have used passive network monitoring to incorporate that into my asset management. And however you deem an asset, the network can give you lots of great data about what you have, because again, it is that source of truth. And I've definitely, gone to others in the organization. Did you know that we have this? And like, no, we don't have that. I'm like, no, you have that. Like, there's no disputing it now because there's packets, right?
Totally. And to your point earlier, the question is do you actually have the packets? And that was something that we had customers struggle with for a long time. Do they have the taps or spans? And are they getting all of the visibility in there? And when you have this this friction taken out, particularly in the cloud, it's a devastating combination there.
Absolutely. Matt, more questions for Mike?
I'm curious. We've seen this kind of evolution across a couple spaces. I'm just curious on your thoughts, Mike, a little bit. Endpoint detection response, threat detection response, network detection and response, right? We've seen these markets individually continue to evolve. Do they start to consolidate at some point? What's kind of the evolution of detection and response as a whole? Does it continue to stay separate markets? Does it consolidate in some respects and move forward? I'm curious kind of what you guys are thinking about at ExtraHop, and where do you see the market going in this whole detection response space?
That's a fantastic question. When you have all these kind of parallel swim lanes that are all supposed to give you the same outcome of detection and response, where are the synergies, where's the duplication, or places that you really have to ask yourself. And what we're very excited about at ExtraHop is there's this emerging XDR or extended detection response market out there. Palo and Microsoft and Cisco and everybody's talking about this. Why we think we're really a big player in that that new wave is through our technology partnerships. I look at some of the early leaders that had EDR as a capability and now have gone on the XDR bandwagon. They've traditionally not been the leaders in the quadrant, and they're trying to mash their tools together in order to solve that perfect panacea that you just described, Matt. With ExtraHop, we being a best-in-class XDR, partnering with, for example, a CrowdStrike or another best-in-class EDR platform, we believe that you can harmonize a lot of the playbooks that you may have, and you're not duplicating effort. A great use case, quick on this is we run into many EDR customers that are very happy with their tool, and we ask them a question: what about all the unmanaged devices, either the devices that aren't able to get an endpoint or are new to your network or might be guest access? What do you want? Do you want to see what they're doing? And if they're able to get an agent put on, ExtraHop can view that, say, hey, there's no Falcon agent, for example, on that endpoint, and we're able to ask Falcon to now manage that. If that's not available or not capable, you still have ExtraHop monitoring and doing behavioral analytics and doing what we do in network detection response on top of that.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because now I can do that. That's a great use case, but I can give you a few more. I can't run Falcon in Fargate but I can see the traffic, right? As you look at different platforms in the cloud where you can't put agents on them, the NDR solution potentially fills some of that visibility gap for those solutions. So I like those use cases because I think they're very relevant for people to understand, Mike, that says, I can't put an agent necessarily everywhere, but I can provide you what's going on at those endpoints without that agent and augment your EDR, for example.
100%. I use the word friction a bunch of times, but in the cloud, you have this ephemeral type of thought process, things spinning up, things spinning down. You have services and workloads that are coming from all over the place. And network detection and response is a fantastic use case for that. We have many different customers out on our websites, example with Ulta Beauty, who's doing a lot of e-commerce capabilities, or the Wizards of the Coast. They're the folks that brought the Dungeons and Dragons from the board game to the web. These are newborn in the cloud use cases for those companies, and they're saying that they can't do it any other way. To your point,
yeah, because logs become ephemeral if not configured correctly in the cloud, and that's why I think it's important to have that source of truth, even if you think you got it right. As things change so rapidly, in your example, Mike, I'm sure there's a pretty good chance you might lose some logs somewhere in there, which is always my concern.
Absolutely, and I'll go back to my if I had a dollar point of view. When I talk to folks about what are they getting out of the logging they're getting out of their cloud infrastructures, it's okay, but it doesn't tell them everything. You have a lot of context that you're missing. And if you go back to the number one issue in security being people and time and capacity, that doesn't help you. And if you can really see that, that Mike never logs into a certain database and all of a sudden, I'm trying to log in, and boom, I got in after the 57th time and I've never gone there before. And I can alert on that. That's much different than what CloudTrail is going to give you. CloudTrail is great. There's a lot of great logging capability from hyperscalers. Let me be clear about that. But there's also a lot of darkness or black spots that you just can't see, or if you have to peer into those, it takes a lot of effort and resource, which neither one of those are prevalent in security programs.
Agreed. Mike, thank you so much for appearing on Enterprise Security Weekly today. For folks that want to learn more, you can go to securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. Mike, thanks again.
Thank you both. Have a great day.
You too. With that, we will conclude this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. See you next time.